Hi everyone, welcome to week 2 in your ED310, The Power of Play course. I must say I am wildly impressed by the work everyone's doing in this class. Congratulations. The first week is the toughest because it is the short week. So if you survive the short week, you will have no problem getting through weeks 2 and 3. So without further ado, I will give you some tips for getting through this second week. Quiz, right? The quiz always comes from the plays, the thing. So you are going to be reading chapters 4, 5, and 6. Take some notes, do whatever you do, and then take that quiz soon thereafter. It's due on Wednesday. Quizzes are always due by the end of the day on Wednesday. The novel for the week, or the longer text that you're going to be reading. The Power of Play. So really this course, when it was originally designed, kind of centered on this text. So this is David Elkind's kind of foundational text. He is a psychology professor. Early childhood is his specialization. He's written so many books. He was at Tufts for a long time. So you got to know him, right? So this is kind of a seminal text that you are going to have for this course. However, like I said before, given the brevity of this course, the fast pace, I would highly encourage you to focus on certain chapters. And hold on, I'm just going to pull up on Canvas to make sure what I'm telling you matches what I'm saying right, or what I said on Canvas. So with Elkind's, yes, okay, great. I thought it was the second section, but I wanted to be sure. So you're going to focus on chapters 5, 6, and 7. Always read the introduction to any text. The introduction gives you the context you need to really understand the text. So I would highly encourage you to read the introduction and then focus on chapters 5, 6, and 7. I have not checked to see whether you can listen to this book or not. I suspect you can, but I haven't checked. If that worked for you with Becoming Brilliant, same thing, I would listen to those chapters. And then you'll write your book review, which is due on Saturday. When you write your book reviews, please make sure that you include headings, right? You always want to have headings. Headings are like road signs. They guide the reader. They're very important. So the sections that you have to write for that book review are a general summary of what you read, a section about what you learned that you didn't know before, a section about things you're still wondering about. So there are some parts to this text that are a bit outdated. If you noticed that, you can point that out. If you have other questions, there's a lot that we've learned from neuroscience. If you're familiar with neuroscience, and we will get to that at other next week. I'll do a little bit with that. But if you are familiar with neuroscience and there's things you're wondering about, maybe they don't necessarily match, or maybe they do support what's in this text, that would be something you could talk about. But what you're wondering about is another section. Connections to your own life experiences, very important. Connections to your personal experiences, your interactions with children. That's the 4th section. And then how this book might shape my practice. And I always have that word might in there because you don't know what you're going to do, right? You're going to be responsive to your kids. But if this book were to shape your practice, what do you suspect? What might that look like? Okay, so you have 5 sections to that book review for a total of 20 points, and that is due on Saturday. Everything else for this week is pretty self-explanatory. You've got a discussion post where you need to watch and read the supplemental materials, and I can just real quickly talk about those. Let me move down here. So the focus of your supplemental materials this week are on the United Nations Rights of the Child Convention. So the United Nations, all member countries with the exception of the United States, ratified this document, which basically proclaims that children have specific rights. And you'll learn more about that. Article 31 is the article that you will be focusing on, but we didn't ratify that, and that really upsets many early childhood educators, including myself, and you can kind of see what your reaction is to that as well. As you dive more into that, you will also spend some more time on the stages of play, okay? So you'll read something about the stages of play, and you'll watch something about the stages of play. And then once you get through those, that's kind of, you got the gist of that last week. So you can submit that discussion posting whenever. Be sure to respond to a peer's post. Do please take the time to support your fellow peers by reading their post and kind of responding substantively to that. And the last thing is your play learning experience. So last time you were just really observing. What did you notice about these kids, right? What developmental stage do you believe they were in? Which of Piaget's cognitive stages do you think? Because that kind of goes along with the stage of play, right? That's really emphasized in the plays the thing text. So you did that last week. This time you are going to plan and implement a curriculum-based playful learning experience for young children. So this time you are going to look at those standards, the academic standards, the social emotional standards, and I give you links for that, and you're going to design something. So what does that mean? It doesn't necessarily mean you interfere with the play. I've read some of your responses, and some of you are rightfully concerned with interrupting kids at play. That's a very delicate subject. Sometimes we do interrupt, but more often we sit by the sidelines and watch, right? Because we want them to kind of figure things out, navigate social situations on their own, kind of create their own play-based experiences, because those are so important. However, that doesn't mean you can't set the stage, right? So there are things you can do to nurture academic development, to nurture all of the different domains of kind of cognitive development, physical development, social emotional development, language development, in addition to the academic stuff, right? Like the pre-literate or the pre-reading behaviors, the literate behaviors. You can always kind of put certain materials in the environment to promote different aspects of mathematical thinking, right? So here you're really going to design an experience with academic standards in mind, or social emotional standards, or a combination of the two. So what I ask you to do here is to include a description of an indoor playful learning experience, right? And your planning process for that. And I can read to you exactly, you can read it as well, but plan and implement an indoor curriculum-based, right? So that means you're using the standards to guide your planning. Playful learning experience for young children. You do not have to use a formal lesson plan template. Okay, don't have to do that. But you do have to be sure to use all that you've learned thus far in the course. So I want you to cite those course materials, and you need to design a guided play experience. Okay, plan a playful lesson. If you're working with 3 and 4-year-olds, like I said, that might involve just putting out some carefully selected intentional props. But if you're working with older students, 5, 6, 7, you can create, for example, some kind of academic game, or something to kind of just nurture that playful mode of inquiry, but also tie in the curriculum component, right? Because it's an art to be able to do this, and it's very important that we learn how to do this. You're going to want to state your objectives. Remember, students will be able to. Your objectives are always written from the standards. So pull the academic standards from the mass frameworks that you intend to use, and write your objectives from that. They may also be social emotional standards. If you want to look at the early childhood social emotional standards, that's also on the website. By all means, go ahead and write your learning objectives, focus on that. They could be math standards. It's completely up to you. Then you need to implement it. Okay, so that's kind of the tricky part. Be thinking about, when are you going to implement this? I have always had students that, not all of my students, but a portion of students kind of enjoy carrying these out on Sundays with children in the neighborhood, their cousins, their siblings, people they babysit for. Given COVID, I don't know what your situation is, but definitely be thoughtfully plan the experience, and know when this week you're going to execute it. And then you write it up. Okay, and so you're going to give a description of the indoor. This is an indoor playful learning experience. Next week, you'll do an outdoor. Give a description of the indoor playful learning experience and your planning process. Be sure to include citations from the course text, which you all seem to have been doing pretty well thus far. The standards and the learning objectives, right? Give me the standard, the number of the standard from the mass framework, write out the part of the standard that you're focusing on, right? Because you're not going to be focusing on the whole standard. And then, of course, your objective follows that standards. So students will be able to, or I can statements are really powerful for students. That's when you pretend that you're the student and you say, I can count to 10, or whatever it is that you are encouraging in your objective. And then you're going to reflect what went well, what might you change next time, from your perspective, and if you can document the child's perspective, what went well for the child, that would be great. So you do need to watch them complete this learning experience. That doesn't mean you have to be physically present. You could watch it over Zoom. You could watch it over FaceTime, whatever. But you do need to reflect. Okay? If you have additional questions about any of the things I described for this week, by all means, seek me out, text me. I'm here to help. But as I said before, I think the biggest hurdle for you this week is kind of completing your first play learning experience that you design, carry out, and write up. All right? You're going to be fine. It's going to be great. Let me know if you have questions. Bye-bye.